Quinault Indian Nation, I first of all want to thank the Cowlitz people for welcoming us to your land and territory. It's an honor to stand here with you this evening and to the future generations. Your heart is there, young lady, senior princess. I'm going to remember you and join you. So thank you for your songs, and to the junior princesses, you're beautiful. Next, I also want to thank and acknowledge the Lummi people. The Lummi people have been longtime partners of the Quinault Nation, probably going back to the beginning of time. My mentor, Joe Delacruz, was president while I was a youngster, and I grew up around Jewell James. As a child, I used to attend the meetings of the Northwest Indian Fish Commission, and it was my job to hold the play and the record button at the same time to record meetings with my mother. And so I grew up around understanding what our natural resources meant to our people. As a young child, I would get in my grandparents' fishing boat, and we'd go up the Quinault, and I remember we'd come around the corner, and if we saw a cork sunken, that was a good sign, a good chance we'd have a salmon in our net. So at the break of dawn, about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, I'd help my grandparents load up the boat, and that was a daily routine for us. And I grew up during the heights of the fishing rights controversies. I was born in 1970, so right around the Bolt era. It was common discussion around the dinner table, and I knew at a young age what treaty abrogation meant, and the idea that there were others that wanted to stop us from doing something our ancestors did from the beginning of time, just to fish that prized resource. And so my grandfather encouraged me to go to school to become an attorney. He said a law degree has a social, political, and economic value to it. And it's something that inspired me, looking at the work of others and growing up at a time when it was seemingly impossible just to exist as God made us. I remember going to other parts in our community just to go out for recreation, and we'd come out and our tires would be slashed because we were known to be Indian fishermen, a fishing family. And I could never understand that, but I did understand that the value that we have for a natural resource, many others outside of our tribal communities share and hold those same values. And that's what I see here tonight, that so many of us know that we're at a critical place in time. We're at that point where we could go in one direction or the other, and quite frankly, the decisions of this country have been leading us down a very dangerous path. And sometimes it may seem impossible to get us back on a path for which we're going to live in harmony with the natural world, but it's a path that we all can choose to take, and we are choosing to take that path. Because at this point, from my perspective, there's no other option. We have a path that we want this young generation, when they grow up and when they have grays in their hair, when they are elders, that they could look back at a time when we were at that pivotal place. When I first got elected, I had a mentor of mine. His name was Guy McMines. I don't know if Guy McMines was an elder at Quinault who came to my 8th grade class, and he said, "Fawn, someday water will be more valuable than oil." And at the time it seemed counterintuitive. And now it's true. Water is so much more valuable than oil. And when I got elected that first year, he stopped by my office and we had a conversation about that. And Quinault began to undertake in 2006 an effort on climate change. And we went to Poznan, Poland, to talk to other countries around the world about what was happening with the environment. My first 3 years in office, I saw on the shores of Quinault the beaches just littered with dead fish from the dead zone. I took a helicopter flight over the Anderson Glacier and saw that it disappeared. There's no glacier that feeds the Quinault River. I had reports that in the 1950s and 60s, we saw millions of blueback sockeye salmon into the Quinault. In 2007, we only had 4,000. And so we undertook a blueback restoration project, and that was because at the turn of the century there was widespread logging. in the Quinault watershed. That widespread logging wiped out 2.5 miles of salmon spawning habitat. So you can see at different points in time, there are decisions. Do we go for short-term, short-sighted gain? Or do we look at that long-term, the long-term interests of our children? And it's very clear that we are at that point. And I'm just so thankful that we have so many friends, so many neighbors, where these values that we do have do transcend so many borders. We all hold a value system that keeps us true, that keeps us knowing that there is a brighter tomorrow for all of us. Because when you think about where we are right now, with the coal and the oil, we are fighting it desperately at Quinault. And we are starting to engage the average citizen, when historically, maybe some of those same people that might have slashed my grandparents' tires are now looking at Quinault as the leader and an advocate to preserve the crab, the fish in the ocean that we all share, that we all value. And so I'm excited to know that even though it seems to be a seemingly impossible task, when we look at the interests on the opposite side, that we are on that right side of this issue. And at some point in time, there will be a self-correcting measure. And it's either going to be self-correcting and we all hold our elected officials accountable. It will be self-correcting in that God, our Creator, has certain commandments and ethics and instruction. And those who choose to violate those run the risk for all of us. But where two or more are gathered, and when there's a group of people that take to heart what God has gifted us, and we value that resource and we come together, nothing is impossible. And we will stand together. And I'm standing here with the totem, and it's going to travel many miles. It's going to see many prayers. And we're going to start to see the work that we have done already creating some momentum. That momentum is only going to grow to the point where there is no other option and there is no other choice. When you look at so many of the things happening right now with the entire western United States on fire, I mean, what other message do we need to convey? There shouldn't be any other message. I took a flight from Portland to Sacramento 2 weeks ago, and my heart just ached almost the whole trip because I looked at Mount Hood, and there's hardly any snow. It looked like just one big dirt pile. I looked at the river systems, hardly flowing with wide banks. And as we started our descent, I saw orange clouds. When on a flight, a normal flight, you feel like you're kind of floating through heaven and you see beautiful clouds. It was all orange, dingy, dirty, ugly. And my little boy was sitting next to me, and he's going to be 11 tomorrow. And I know that we're teaching our children the right values. After spending a week in the Bay Area, he woke me up that Saturday morning when we returned, 6 o'clock, Mama, I need to get outdoors. I feel like I need to go outdoors today. So we went out on the river, we went hiking, we saw the waterfalls. And I know our children feel that connection, that same connection that Chief Seattle spoke of. What we do to the earth, we do to ourselves. We are connected. All things are connected. That was his message. You do wrong to the earth, you do wrong to ourselves. And I thought there's so many arguments on the other side of this issue, but we can never buy back a fish that has become extinct. We can never buy back a glacier. We can never buy back a fresh ocean. We can never buy back clean river systems. But when all those indications are there, every elected official has a responsibility, a higher responsibility, when those issues for which we have no control over are going to continue to worsen the environment. We better be making good public policy decisions, not decisions just to negligently and recklessly and carelessly destroy our environment without consequence. They know it, we know it, and we need to stand firm together. And I firmly believe that groups like this, prayers, united efforts, children as a witness, guidance from our elders, we're on that right path, and we will see success. And we will continue to see a natural world that will regenerate, that will restore. Amen.
Amen.